When Tanty was thwarted, the neighbors for 6 houses on every side of us were generally aware of this fact.
You think blasted Saga clothes and theater this grand tree? And before you look to help out your mother, and she 49 children. No, you prefer sit down on your ass for them long, worthless young men down at that bridge.
All right, man. I go just go down by my mother and say you put me out.
Hear how you talking through your ass again. I ever put you out? And go down by your mother and where she go put you? On top the roof? No. Under the house. And you ain't shame. You reach a big, long young man, and she's still there catching she tail with the little old house falling down on she head.
As was not uncommon, Mikey left the house precipitately to the accompaniment of flying objects. One time, even including Leela with the blood-red cheeks and startled eyebrows who happened to be at hand. Ooh, the rampage when Leela went out the window and break it. Then Mikey stood behind the protective shaddock tree, as was his wont, and tell Tanty what was what. Then I follow him down by the bridge. Manhattan was an individual who at some obscure date had gone away. Some of the boys say he only reached as far as a small work in Curacao. Some say he only reached as far as the local base. But Manhattan himself, mouth always screwed to one side and all the words coming out his nose, gave it out that he had been upstate side, fellas, up America side.
Hey, yo, fellas, let me tell you, I outdrew that sheriff in Dodge City. I was so fast, nobody even seen me. I was done before he had a chance to move. And as for the women, upstate side, I couldn't keep them off me. This one blonde chick wouldn't leave me alone. Passing still when I had moved all along. Had this redhead thing I was working. Martinis, you know, and a little caviar on the side. She couldn't resist.
Crick, crack.
In his rage, Manhattan forgot to screw him out to one side.
Crick, crack, your mother. It's true, I tell you. You only blast the jealous in you. Crick, crack. I go crick, crack your snows.
They fight until distracted by Mrs. Heinz passing.
Ooh. Man. Miss Heinz. Damn. That bottom falling. Mind the bosoms in them too, Miss Heinz. You might overbalance with all that weight in front there.
How she go over balance? That is what the bottom there for. You never hear about balance or what?
Mrs. Heinz would turn and lecture them with the most careful enunciation of the moral evils of vagabondage.
Oh, yes. Lord. Glory. Glory be.
True spoke, sister. Amen. Amen.
Hey. What about your nan boy, Mikey?
What?
I could handle that. Actually, if I can pass in by Sheena.
What?
Then Mikey was on top of him and they were rolling all on the ground, pounding each other, thrashing about with their arms and legs, dust flying and everybody crowding around. And I was torn up from the ground by firm hands, propped on the bar of bicycle and propelled down the road and abruptly deposited at my front gate to answer Tanty's questioning glare. I completely forget what Mikey promised would befall us if we ever breathed a word about him taking us down there and caused that setting hen to take a turn in his ass. I only remember as I tell Tanty we leave them there still fighting. So I quiet myself and wait for the rampage to begin. But Tanty forehead creased like she thinking about something else.
What does that boy tell Mikey?
I tell her again. Still nothing. She must be was saving her rampage for when Mikey reached. Setting the table in silence, going by the window every few minutes to peer up the dark road. When we hear his step on the gallery, my heart and my stomach exchange places. Mikey slouched into his execution, jersey torn, expression on his face like he would willingly batter into the earth anybody who even watched him too hard.
Your tea on the table, Mikey.
And she spread some slices of bread alarmingly thick with butter, heap some smoke herring onto the plate, and carry it to him reverently to his room. The threat we had come to designate compendiously as the bitch began to hover over every day of our lives.
I don't care how much letter that bitch sent, eh? All you know if that bitch turn up while me and Mikey not here, what to do, eh?
Run quick by neighbor Ramlal wife and stay here.
And if neighbor Ramlal wife not there?
Go straight by neighbor Doris.
And if Doris not there?
Tanty Mavis or Mother Mother.
Good.
And Auntie Beatrice went from a blurred, distant voice like high heels and stockings in our memory
We will take the children.
to having horns and a jobless face and 1,000 attributes of female terrifyingness. With the result that we did not scamper off in terror and panic when one afternoon, playing in the yard with Dulari, a car drew up and a lady with a benignant smile alighted in a cloud of dull perfume to smother us in kisses and sweeties.
Your auntie is not home, is she?
No.
And the boy?
Mikey? He gone to work.
Well, how would you like to go for a nice drive in your Uncle Norman's car?
Todden didn't give me a choice.
And here, child. And go home, huh? Your mom must be looking for you. Look how she has these coolie children running about with them. Come, children. Come.
The whole drive, she talked non-stop.
Does that woman leave you there alone in the daytime? Does she beat you? And what about all those men? Do you like all those men coming?
All what men?
Your auntie's friends.
You mean Mr. George and Uncle Herman and Uncle Sylvester and Uncle Nero and them?
Oh, and them, goodness. I cannot imagine all sorts of men in and out what you children must be exposed to. Norman, can you imagine? And what about when she gets drunk? How often must you fend for yourselves?
But we don't
Oh, you poor things. You must be absolutely miserable living with that woman.
No.
Does she make sure you have a proper balanced diet? Do you children have decent meals at a table with proper manners and etiquette? Is she training you at all? How could a woman like that possibly raise you to be nice people? You must be miserable. We must make sure you get nice treats today. How would you two like some ice cream? Yes! And we must stop and get some roast corn. Norman, don't forget. Children, you want roast corn? Of course you do. What's that there? More sweeties? Of course I have more. Here you are. And just until we get to the roast corn and ice cream. Children, how would you like to come and spend the August holidays with us? Wouldn't that be lovely? To come and stay with us at our nice house? And get to know some nice people? You will ask your auntie, yes? Press her to let you come and spend the August vacation with Bernadette and Carol and Jessica and Uncle Norman and me. Like a good girl.
When I see Tan, Mavis, Georgina, Mooney, Ma Philippa gathered in our yard, I wonder what happened. As the car stopped, Todden jumped out and ran excitedly up the path as Tanty's figure detached itself from the knot and precipitated itself frantically down the path to snatch him up and haul me to her side in the same savage moment as she faced down the car. Auntie Beatrice and Uncle Norman didn't dare come out. And what Tanty ain't tell that bitch is only what she forget or didn't have time to before the car pull off. The very next day, we were hustled off to Ma in Point Espoir, dipping into valley after valley, hills covered with every conceivable kind of foliage, thick green darknesses, sudden little streams running down to the sea we could spy down between the trees when we least expected to see it. The air smelled green. We went out with Ma. She, armed with cutlass, to hack away at thick vines and annihilate whole bushes in one swing, to pick oranges, mangoes, chestnuts and plantain. She had a spot in the market Sunday mornings and spent the entire week stewing cashew, pomme cite, cereals, making guava cheese and guava jelly, sugar cake, nut cake, benny ball, shaddock peel candy, chili baby. We hung around the kitchen to feast on the smells, never afforded the opportunity of gorging ourselves.
My own bold-faced tea. Hardened as the devil's shit. But that is your great-great-grandmother. That is she, thank God.
And sometimes when the others weren't about,
And who is my sugar cake?
tea,
And who is my dumpling?
tea,
Who tell you that?
ma,
Well, Ma is a liar old fool. My grandmother come back again with.
When you see ma forehead crease and her eyes close and she rubbing her temples, and if anybody speaks, she wave them away, I know she trying to remember her grandmother's true name.
You growing into my grandmother again. Her spirit in you. They never went down her spirit. And she would come back and come back and come back. If only I could live to see my own tea growing to my tall, proud, straight grandmother. I must remember her name.
Look, what all you want me to do? Put all your children to sit down on one another's head? I tell you, I have no more room in the ABC. Try the RC school. Put them by Mrs. Heinz. Send them up Koreaka school. I don't care what all you do. Just carry them away and you could bring them back when they pass ABC.
All these years, I swear I would have never sent even a dog of mine by that blasted Heinz. That woman is a long horse-faced mako with nothing to do but mind for business. What the blasted government there for but to build school for the children? Now look at my cross. I have to put the child by these shifters. All they know is to run behind the reverend ass and the wife and smell every fart they blow. When it was black ass Reverend Joseph, God rest his soul. They used to find the ass the hell up in Koreaka Church on a Sunday morning, no? Me? I would have shit on them. Just you remember, you going there to learn book, eh? Don't let them put no blasted shit in your head, eh?
Heinz sat in her chair with a piece of embroidery or other sewing, and from time to time addressed someone without raising her head in a slow, commanding voice that grated effortlessly over the bedlam. On my first day, she called me up to her with my slate. Across the top of it, she make a row of identical creatures, hand slate and pencil back to me saying, "Here, make A for apple," then take up her embroidery again. Sometimes her mother would come tottering and groping into the room and arrange herself laboriously into a chair. Conversation between Mrs. Heinz and the old lady was a slow business. Mrs. Heinz had to repeat every other word because the old lady's hearing wasn't so good, and her voice was like a foreign radio station fading in and out and crackling, all the S's fizzing out through the spaces between what teeth she had. They discussed the household of such and such a child whose family was doomed to destruction because the father drank and the mother never took the children to church. Or the pernicious Save Soul Sunday schools these ignorant people send their children in. One would think they were singing calypso. Mr. Heinz daily endeavored to bring us to a state of reverence toward the large frame portrait of Churchill through forced recitation of Children of the Empire, Ye Are Brothers All, and singing of God Save the King and Land of Hope and Glory alongside his lengthy lectures, never changed his personage on the wall from being crapple face, but his lectures and their tangents. One indolent afternoon, Mr. Heinz was taking up the reading lesson of an individual known as Tanty Joseph, who stalled for a good 5 minutes at GRAPES until Mr. Heinz roared.
Look at the picture and say what you see.
Tanty Joseph looked at the picture, lighted up with sudden triumph, and announced, GRAPES, Janet! Mr. Heinz started bellowing, and Tanty Joseph started stuttering over our suppressed giggling until Mr. Heinz turned to us.
Silence! Nincompoops!
And the now frightened hush gave way to a sharp crack, and Tanty Joseph's high-pitched wail.
Damn you! Damn you! You confounded nincompoop! You nincompoops!
He flinged Tanty Joseph back across the room, it hit the floor, and fallen an undignified heap on the floor. No one had the faintest inclination to giggle. Alarm seized us because Mr. Heinz' ruler was rarely satisfied with one victim at a time.
Go home! All of you! Go home and never come back here! You'll never get anywhere! You'll never better yourselves! You'll never be anything but pickaninnies! Here I stand, trying to teach you to read and write the English language. Trying to teach confounded pickaninnies to read and write. I, who have sat on the benches of the Inns of Court. I, who have marched to glory side by side with Her Majesty's bravest men. I don't have to stand here and busy myself with little black nincompoops.
From the conversations of Mrs. Heinz and the old lady, I gathered to my puzzlement that Toddle and I, glances in my direction were fraught with concern, were being dragged up. But how desirable a fate, glances of awe and admiration, that our daddy was up there and surely going to send for us. I make the mistake of asking Tanty what they meant.
Drag up? What? Drag? Let me show them drag. I go show them drag. I going straight down there right now and spit on that bitch. So help me God.
Don't bother, Nen. Don't bother. Don't bother with that old bitch. You will only get the child put out.
Get out of my way, boy.
Wait, no, Nen.
I say get out my way. Get out of my way.
Wait.
Get out of my way, boy.
Wait till she leave there, and then you and me will go and spit on the bitch. Now you will know to keep your tail shut and don't come home with everything you hear them two dotish old witch say.
We had not seen the last of the bitch. Not Mrs. Heinz, the real threat.
Paper? What paper? I want to shit on all your paper. You ain't have a right? Get the hell out of my yard. You shut your face. When you come out, I know you. And as for you, you must think I now drop yesterday. You feel I know you trying to take these children from the home since their dear mother gone. God rest his soul. And now, you gone so far as to bring the police for me? You dare bring police in my yard with your flimsy paper to try to take these children? Who the hell you feel you is?
I would have never think any piece of paper could have get in the way of what Tanty say. But her last words that day as she put the brown grip in my hand were,
We come in fall, yeah? But don't tell them nothing. You hear?
Auntie Beatrice always called me Cynthia like I was in school or in trouble. And she always called Tadan Codrington, and he never know she mean him.
It was your Auntie Beatrice who gave you that name, dear, when you were a little tiny baby. Don't you think it's nicer than that silly name that they call you?
He named Tadan. It's I who name him.
Yes, darling, but that was when you were little. You're a big girl now, aren't you?
I try all kind of things to get us sent home. But to my disgust,
Oh, you mustn't be naughty, darling.
When we going home?
just now. Ain't you want Tanty?
Yes.
And Mikey?
Yes.
Well, all right, ball.
If I boil, we going home?
Yes.
All right then.
Oh, gosh, darling. Darling, what happened? Oh, let Auntie Beatrice help. Tell me what's wrong. What's upsetting you? What you want? More sweeties?
We had to deal with worse before things got better.
Here they are, Cynthia and Codrington. Say good afternoon, Father. Good afternoon, ladies.
Good afternoon, Father. Good afternoon, ladies.
Well, you two certainly cleaned up very nicely. Thank you. And what a nice watch, Codrington, dear.
Uncle Herman buy for me.
Your uncle what, dear?
Uncle Herman now.
Oh, that's not your uncle, dear. You only have one uncle. That's your Uncle Norman. Goodness.
Oh, take off these damn stupid pants now, man. I want to caca.
Oh, my. Oh. Oh. Where are Cynthia and Codrington? Eudora, pack these children's things. Come, children. Your dear Tanty is taking you. God help you.
I bet you say you'll leave you here by your Tanty Beatrice. Look, my girl. Well, you know. Yeah, she know big shot. Yeah, she know. Big shot in all kind of government office. Father presenting. So she get she paper. But we wipe we backside with she paper. Send all your children to get some tongue breeze. And in the time, I get a statement from all your father. You should have seen the bitch face in the courthouse, eh? She looked like she panty fall down. But that is the end of that, bitch, eh? Matter fix. You living by your Tanty. Your father self could go to hell. What say you? All you ain't even have no use for here?
I thought Tanty won. That would have been the last. I had only ever raided the estate in Mikey's company because everybody knew about Mr. Braffett, who still lived deep in the acres of the Santa Clara estate. He had killed a beautiful woman who was a servant in the estate house, and her man walked her obia on him, and now he couldn't die. And every full moon, he turned into a lagahoo, and under moonlight, meet the woman again, who had, of course, turned a latter bless. And two, he went mad and killed and eat his wife and all his children, and now had a taste for more. But, big and brave now, I was raiding the estate with friends from school. We stole and climbed trees while lookouts watching Mr. Braffett, too often stampeding us into mad squealing flight, leaving a trail of cereals and tambron only to find him nowhere to be seen. Until the day, the silence catch me in the tambron tree, and I look up to realize everybody else long gone and a man approaching fast through the trees. I felt paralyzed. And then, with no plan, was suddenly climbing down the tree and hearing my own voice bawl, "Whitey cockroach!" Followed by a string of every obscenity I could think of, firing like a machine gun. And as he stand up in shock, I run. I thought I was safe. But the next morning, Mr. Braffett was at school pointing out that one bear with the red bows. And I ended up in Mr. Thomas' office.
What is your name, child?
Cynthia Davis.
Ah, yes! How is your tanty, child?
Well, thank you, Mr. Thomas.
I was your tanty's teacher, you know. Do you know that?
Yes, Mr. Thomas.
You know, your tanty used to cuss down Tom, Dick, and Harry too as a schoolgirl. She would have given the governor a cussing if he looked at her too hard. Even the headmaster was a little afraid of her. Well, what must I do with you, child? Tell you to leave the mister's fruit trees in peace? I used to stone down those very trees, you know, when I was a boy. Collect some good cocktail too. Hey, go to your class, child. Go to your class.
I floated into class with triumph on my face, meant for the 40-odd pairs of vulture eyes I knew waited my entrance. The other culprits wetting their pants, expecting to be summoned to the office next. I didn't give Sir a thought, and I should have. Triumph was one thing Sir didn't stand for on a child's face.
You there!
We stood regarding each other for a long moment while I endeavored to adjust my features into contriteness.
Well, what have you got to say for yourself?
I considered the affair closed and none of his damn business. So I changed my contrite look for blankness. He was in favor of blankness, a good Indian cow expression.
Well, tell us about your escapade up on other people's property.
I was sure this hateful creature had also raided the estate when he was small. But the picture of Sir, a little boy running wrong in short pants, wasn't feasible. I stared at him without saying a word.
Come here. Put out your hand. Put out your hand. If your parents don't teach you respect, then I will.
Everyone knew Sir gave 2 lashes with a tampon whip, then paused to see the effect. If you looked sufficiently distressed, he followed up with 2 more and then you could go. But if you did not react satisfactorily, he went on, stopping every few blows to scrutinize your face. Each time he paused to look at me, he only encountered my eyes staring back at him with intense coolness. He was furious.
Disrespect! Disrespect! Up into that gentleman's land to revile him! Disrespect! Keep your rudeness for your mother and your father!
Eventually, I decided to bawl.
Look, sit down. Go to your seat.
What you think your boy bring home from the base today?
Well, I know. He must bring home 2 dead crapple he find up on the road.
Better see I go and throw it in the river and bring 2 dead crappo instead.
Oh, but you want to see a nene jump in the river and drown herself?
Ta-da!
Mikey, let me take a drink now.
Tanty's squawk of delight could put him in a good mood for a whole week.
Then,
Uh-huh.
my boss, so impressed with me, he say he go organize me to reach New York.
They don't like much black people up there, no?
What you talking? Are you going in the south?
I tell you, they don't like black people, north or south. Don't make a difference.
God, man, then is a white man sending me. You think all the white people and them does go about with gun looking for black man to shoot down?
Well, all right, go. Holy ass. You go have plenty pretty shirt and saga pants, all you want. Go.
But I ain't going for good, then. I'm coming back.
Yeah, you're coming back. You're coming back when I old and blind. You're coming back for a week to sun your backside and run back. And you're parking yourself in Strandview
We ate in silence, except for the violent clattering of dishes and pots. Tanty did not turn on the radio for Mary Price, Midland's housewife, mother, and confidant, which she always said was damn shit, but listened to every evening, strips in her contempt. She cleared the table fiercely with a further clanging and crashing coming from the kitchen, then emerged brusquely.
But what the ass it is it have up there for you, eh? What the shit up there it have for you to do? What you put up there? You put something up there? Me and know what you understand it have up there? It in her no blasted heaven here, but it in her that no way. It's all about have catch ass. Any damn place you is, you just have to haul your ass out of bed when the morning come. Your vest does have to wash. Your ears just get wax. And if you ain't shit, your belly does hurt you. Me I know if you think it does have something different, like if you cross the blasted Jordan or what. Look at Selwyn. Go on to sea. Go on to sail. First day the ship touch England, he pass on it. He think he reached the golden gates. Park your ass there and what? Catch any tail. Catch any royal ass. He ain't say so. Nobody does send them from the golden gate to say they catch the tail. For they would sound like the living jackass. And one day, out of the clear blue, he write and say, send the children up in the golden gates with me. Send them to catch their backside up in the golden gates with he. Well, he lied. He go have to come with God and he mother.
Nenen, our paper.
And what?
They give me this paper and well, they say that them that responsible for me have to sign it.
I know you telling me that for. I ain't responsible for you. You's a big, long young man.
But it's because I ain't have 21 years yet, that's why.
You ain't had 21 years yet. It's yesterday. I put you on my back and bring you here. And both of we come like two man rats in the same hole. But that didn't say you had to pick up and leave from me before I even get to see you grow. But hand me them paper. Hand me the paper! I can't stop you.
Can I come in and congratulate the scholar?
Come in. Where your man?
Norman?
Bring him too, everybody. You have to take a drink on my child here.
I mean, I don't know if he would indulge in such
God,
things.
where he is? Sit down in the vehicle.
Yes.
Tadan! Come now, man, boy. Come and go down in the part and tell your Uncle Norman come out, he fancy can't take a drink.
Cynthia, look at you. Look at how you've grown since we last laid eyes on you. Your Uncle Norman will not recognize you. Oh, congratulations, dear. We are so surprised and so proud of you. And what school would you like to go to, dear? The very best, of course, for a bright girl like you. St. Anne's, not so?
Yes.
Well, we must talk to your auntie. Your Uncle Norman and I can get you into St. Anne's.
A few days later, the bitch was back to finalize arrangements.
Of course. She will come home at vacations and now and then at weekends. And we will get all her uniforms, of course. No need to worry.
Thank you, madam. But we will see about that. We are not paupers.
Very well, if you insist. So, I think we should come and get Cynthia at least a week in advance of school opening so she can settle down, you know, and get used to her surroundings.
No need. T come by you enough time already. She don't need to leave home so early. Day before is just fine. And don't forget, she coming home for Mooney wedding.
my dear. You must start going along with Carol and Jessica to some of these birthday parties and garden parties they're always invited to. You need to come out among nice people's children. Oh my, but not like that. Surely you have something nicer, dear. If only I had you with me sooner to bring you up from when you were little.
This one?
Do you really like that dress, dear?
This one my favorite. Tanty make this for me.
Oh, no.
I never see that dress again. Plenty of my things disappear from that wardrobe.
Mother? But that is my dress.
Yes, I know Carol, darling. But you didn't expect her to go to Mass in that niggery-looking dress, did you?
I don't care. That is my dress.
Carol, please. We must help your poor cousin however we can.
Mother, that is your project, not mine.
Auntie, I could go and pack my things?
Go and pack?
Yeah, for Mooney wedding.
Oh! Oh! You mean that coolie affair? Look, dear. Your aunt is very wrong to drag you along to these things. You have nothing to do in that simmy-dimmy. Tomorrow, we will go for a nice long drive and maybe drop in on your Auntie Beryl. What about that? I will write and tell your Aunt Rosa that you have the flu. I know you must miss your little brother, dear. But I'll tell you what. We'll drive you home next weekend and come back for you on Sunday night.
But I knew that Saturday was one of the next door children's birthday party.
You know, Carol's middle name is Elizabeth, too. Your poor mother. It wasn't really her fault. She was a grown girl, after all, and as such she couldn't stay at the godparents' hands much longer. She had to take almost the first comer. I mean, it was the godparents' fault, too. They were low-class people and had no idea about anything. Your mother, Elizabeth, was such a beautiful little girl that when the family had to go all ways, the people up on the Grange had been willing to have her, and they would have even taken her back to England with them. But she went to the godparents. She who by right belonged with the people on the Grange. And look what happened. Up there in the bush, there wasn't anything that was her quality, really. If it hadn't been for him, you might have looked like her. God rest her soul and give her peace. They might just as well have put you in the orphanage. It would have been no greater shame. What could you two turn into but little ragamuffins with no manners and no gratitude? What a mercy she took the last with her. What a mercy, Mary, Mother of God, not another infant delivered into the hands of a fallen woman. And may God forgive her for the two she brought into the world.
I got the impression that I should be thoroughly ashamed, for it seemed that my person must represent the rock bottom of the family's fall from grace.
I really don't know what to do with Jessica, you know, Norman. This child has no ambition at all.
It's not my fault! I tell you, Sister Columba don't like me.
Sister Columba doesn't.
I know it doesn't. Give me a chance now.
Well, then say doesn't. If you want to talk like any old ordinary market people, then you can go and live with market people.
They only pick the fair girls anyway.
Look, my girl, it is not any fault of mine that you are dark. You just have to take one look at me and you will see that. There you have nothing to reproach me for. But the darker you are, the harder you have to try. I'm tired of telling you that. What you don't have in looks, you have to make up for otherwise.
Since I missed Mooney wedding, Auntie Beatrice never bring up me going home for a weekend. Never once mentioned Tanty name since. Even though she seemed close every time she talked about poor little Elizabeth, whose low-class godparents got her instead of the people up on the Grange. By the time Carnival reached, I didn't even want to go home for Carnival again. So we went in the sand both days, sit primly in the company of tourists and watch the bands, seeing the unmistakable niggeriness of the whole affair. Then Easter was approaching, and Auntie Beatrice took it for granted that I was coming with them to Canapo, where they rented a beach house. She didn't speak of writing Tanty to tell her, but I knew I had to, unless I wanted to see Tanty appear at Auntie Beatrice's front door to tell her what was what. I said I was going to spend the holidays down Canapo, that I wanted to because I had never been down there before. The first 2 days in Canapo, we all went down to the beach together. But by day 3, Carol and Jessica had befriended the De Silvas, who were staying on the other side of the head. And then it was just me, Auntie Beatrice, and the always silent Uncle Norman whole day, every day.
I know, Cynthia, what a good child you are. You would never treat your poor mother like Carol and Jessica, spending absolutely no time with us these last few days. Where were you, dear?
I went for a walk.
But why didn't you say?
I said I was going. Maybe you didn't hear.
I want you to come down to the village with me to get some things for tonight.
She had been coaxing Carol and Jessica to bring the De Silvas and their friends home for dinner.
Well, it's just us again. Do you know where my daughters are? Crab hunting, if you please. Carol screams like a mad woman when she sees a little baby spider. You see the family I got? I spend my life teaching my children to be decent, teaching them to what is important, and they forget who it is that got them where they are. You are such a good child, Cynthia. It was God's will after all that your poor mother died. All things for the best. As now, I have a comfort. What do you think your aunt and your little brother are doing now?
I don't know.
Do you still want to go and see your aunt?
Yes.
Plenty of food in the kitchen, if the food is good enough for the lady.
T absent-mindedly dishes food into a bowl, grabs a spoon, and begins eating.
What's the matter, Cynthia? Weren't there any more plates and knives and forks?
Yes.
Well, you just find them for me, please. Don't bring your ordinariness here. We don't eat with bowl and spoon here. You're not living at your precious Tanty now. That woman, bringing you up in her niggery ways. To think she should believe she has the right. Huh. Whatever will happen to the boy? What will happen to him? What can that woman teach him? A woman with no culture, no breeding, no sense of right and wrong herself? What can she teach the child? I will live to see him spurn that woman. Mark my words. Nobody can say I haven't tried. God is my witness. I have tried. But what can you do? What? Who can undo the work of the devil. And what have I got for my trouble? What? If it wasn't for my own flesh and blood, so help me Almighty, I would give up. My own flesh and blood. Who would think so? Anybody who wouldn't know would say it was some family with no kind of background. Nobody would believe there was good blood. But give the sons of kings to pigs, and they will turn into pigs. Yes.
I wanted to shrink, to disappear. The very sight of me was an affront to common decency. I wish my body would shrivel up and fall away, and I could step out new and acceptable. Now I resented Tanty for not letting Auntie Beatrice get us in the first place and bring us up properly. What Auntie Beatrice said was true. How could a woman with no sense of right and wrong take it upon herself to bring up children? God knew the reason he hadn't given her any of her own. If I had never lived there, if Auntie Beatrice had whisked us away from the very beginning and brought us here, I would have been nice. I was ashamed and distressed for thinking about Tanty this way. And afraid of one thing more than anything else in the world. That sooner or later, Auntie Beatrice would get so tired of the sight of me that she would send me back to Tanty. I get a letter from Tanty.
Dear Cynthia, not a word you write to your Tantan since April. Why is that? Todden is fine. He is in second standard now, you know. Dulari is also fine. She said, Tanty, I'm keeping you company till Simpson come back. Well, now why I'm writing this letter is, I am sure you will be glad to hear of it. We are coming to see you Friday evening, so tell that bitch so she could please herself. We are getting a drop in Uncle Sylvester's car. You remember Uncle Sylvester? Yours truly, Tanty.
With horror, I realized that it was Friday now. No chance of warding them off. And who were them? I suddenly thought, my heart making another plunge toward my stomach. Who was Tanty bringing into Auntie Beatrice's house? Coweringly, I broke the news.
Oh my good heavens! And Father Sheridan is coming today. I must ring him immediately.
I waited in pain for the sound of the car drawing up to our gate. Auntie Beatrice had her worst dragon face on.
See? Doo-doo!
With Uncle Sylvester, coarse and repulsive, overfed stomach chipping out over the top of his pants. And Dulari, in her yellow dress and white shoes with the fronts cut away to give her toes room. And Todden, not so round again, a big boy now.
Well, look, Simpson, talk to Hannah, Dudu, all the things you had to tell her.
God, I sat on the edge of my chair, head hanging, while they produced a series of greasy paper bags. Palori, Ancha, roti from Nebramlal wife, Accra, fry bake, and Zabaka from Tanty, all manner of ordinary nastiness.
See? You don't want to eat up Palori or something? What are you waiting for?
I recoil in alarm at the very thought of sitting in Auntie Beatrice's drawing room eating coolie food. And Accra, saltfish. Fancy even bringing saltfish into Auntie Beatrice's house. God, a strong smell of curry assailed the drawing room. Another thing I would have to pay for later. Todden talked steadily, delivered all the news. It must have dawned on Tanty that I didn't have very much to say for myself. She didn't take her eyes off me the whole time, and the few times I dared to look away, I was unable to read her expression. Then she sprang up and gathered Todden, Dulari, and Uncle Sylvester abruptly.
We going now, Cynthia. Tell your Auntie Beatrice we gone.
Tanty turned and hustled the children out. And as they disappeared through the door, I had one fleeting urge to call them back. Several times over the next few weeks, I contemplate running away and going back to Tanty. I work it out in great detail. The bus to the railway station, the train to Koreaka, and then the bus that would put me down at Ramsaran corner. I just had to leave the house one morning and instead of going to school, go down to the bus depot and ask which bus went to the station. People might think this girl in a St. Anne's uniform was breaking beach, but I could look sick and people would think I was ill and had to go back home. I didn't need any baggage because I had clothes up there and Tanty would make me more. Off the bus at Ramsaran corner, up to Kunu Road, across the bridge and past Ma Philippa's disagreeable dog and up the path to the front gate and always then my plan broke down. When I look up the path and see Tanty standing in the gallery, arms folded. Then, crazily, I would think of heading up to Point d'Espoir instead. Ma would surely welcome me with bursting joy, pleased to see what a big girl her own tea had grown into. Her own bold-faced tea, hardened as the devil's shit. Her own grandmother come back. Then one day, when I came home from school, Auntie Beatrice almost ran down the front path to greet me, beaming, beside herself. She had a letter from Tanty saying, my father was sending 2 plane tickets for Toddon and me, and we were to leave at the end of the term. The last time my father suggested we join him, Tanty had been on a rampage for a week. In the remaining time, my standing was that of a pariah who had suddenly gained a title. Carol and Jessica regarded me with mute awe. Auntie Beatrice threw a party for me and invited all the nice people's children she could think of, so the news got safely around to all the nice people. She took me shopping for clothes and managed to communicate to every shop clerk that this was her little niece who was going up to England.
So we're just getting a few things together, you know?
I went back to Santa Clara at almost the last minute. I did not relish facing Tanty. It was strange as she wrote to Auntie Beatrice and not to me. And why were we going up to my father anyway? Was Tanty giving us over without a fight? And was it pure coincidence that my father should ask for us now when the last time had been almost 2 years ago? Again and again, I tried to dismiss the conclusion that this time, it was not my father who had asked Tanty to send us up to him. I need not have worried about Tanty's reception. Her head was tied, and for the moment, there was no sting in her. Ma had died the week before. She informed me, and every word was a ton of bricks on my head, that Ma had been asking for tea, her own tea. But she had told her that tea had no time to come all the way up to Point d'Espoir to see her. But in the last days, Ma had suddenly remembered her grandmother's name and wanted to add it to my names. Tanty hadn't even bothered to remember it. Everything was changing. It's unrecognizable, pushing me out. I had moved up and no longer had any place here. It was painful, and I longed all the more to be on my way.